Today we will discuss pointers in C++, which is by far a very important concept for you to know as a C++ developer. Pointers are simply variables that store the address of another variable. Basically, when you create a variable, the compiler will indirectly allocate space inside the memory to store this variable. Let us say we declared an integer variable and we know that integers are 4 bytes. And if you want to know the size of a data type, all you need to do is use the size of method and inside mention the data type. For example, a double. So this size of function will find or give you the size in bytes of this certain data type. But either way, 4 bytes will be allocated for this integer to be stored in memory. But this space in memory has a specific address. And what pointers do is that they store the address of the value they are pointing at. So let's go ahead and create a pointer. First of all, I'll declare a num variable that will store the value of 12. Because I want to create a pointer that points to the value of 12, what I should do is that I should define the pointer with the same type of the value it points at. So because it points to an integer, that means the pointer must be of type integer. But the difference is that after mentioning the type of the pointer, you should mention this asterisk sign. This tells the compiler that you are creating a pointer variable or a pointer that points to a certain variable. Okay, now I'll name this ptr num, pointer to num. Okay, now because pointers store address of a certain variable, that means I want to store the address of this variable or this value. How should I find or how could I find the address of a variable? Well, all you need to do is use the AND operator or this reference operator, which we saw in this video about pass by value and pass by reference. Now when I use this operator right here and mention num like this, what this will do is that it will find the address of num or the variable num, or even more specifically, it will find the address of 12. So 12 is stored in memory, it will find the address of 12. So what happens if I go ahead and say cout address of like this num, which is 12, and I will print the address. How should I print the address? Well, I could say ptr num because ptr num is a variable or a pointer that stores the address of another variable, right? So let's go ahead and compile this file. As you can see, the address of 12 is this hexadecimal value, okay? Now, of course, the address on your machine will definitely be different on mine, but this is the address where 12 is located or stored, okay? And so pointers actually store addresses of other variables. Now there's a very important concept with pointers, and it is called pointer dereferencing. And pointer dereferencing means that what you'll do is that you'll use pointer dereferencing concept to find the value at this specific address. Let's go ahead and see what I mean. If I go ahead and say cout and I say value at address like this and I say ptr num, in order to dereference a pointer, what you need to do is the following. You'll mention the asterisk sign and say ptr num, or mention the name of the pointer variable. Now what this will do is that what it will do, it will go to the address of the variable or the address that the pointer variable stores, and because you mentioned this asterisk sign, what it will do is that in that address, it will take the value that is inside this address and it will print it for you right here. Let's go ahead and see it. So if I go ahead and run my code again and launch, as you can see, after using pointer dereferencing, what it will do is that it will fetch the value at this address and simply print it for me. So pointer dereferencing is very important. It is when you use the pointer to actually access the value in memory. So if I go ahead and say something like ptr num plus equal to 12, that actually works because why? I'm first of all getting the pointer or using the pointer and dereferencing it. That means I'm getting the value at this specific address and then I am adding 12 to this value. So if I go ahead and say cout like this and say ptr num like this, of course I should get 24, okay? Because what I do is that first of all let me compile and then I'll explain. And there you go, we got 24. So what I did is that I dereferenced the pointer, I got 12, which is the value stored inside this address or inside the pointer or the address inside memory. What I did is that I added 12 to this value, and so what will happen is that inside this memory, 12 will be replaced by 24 because you added 12 to the old value or the original value. Okay, so this is pointer dereferencing. It's very important. It is used again to access the value at this address. Now another thing with pointers is that when you want to use them in functions, Let us go ahead now and create a void function that will increment by 2 a certain number. Okay, now I'm going to do like this, and right here what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass a pointer. How do you pass a pointer to a function? So I'll say something like int pointer with the asterisk sign. I'll say something like ptr. This is how you pass a pointer. Now I'm going to go ahead and say int num again, let's say 24. I'm going to say something like int ptr num, this is the pointer to the num variable. I'm going to say and to find the address of the num variable. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say cout like this. I'll say before. After this I'm going to say ptr num. I'm dereferencing the pointer. Now what I'll do next is I'll say increment by 2 and pass the pointer. So how do you pass the pointer? You simply just write the name of the pointer variable. Okay, and now let me go ahead and say cout like this. I'll say after like this and dereference the pointer in order to find the value inside this address. Okay, and so like this. Now let us go ahead and give this function an implementation. The implementation I'm going to give it is very simple. I will first of all dereference the pointer in order to get the value, and what I'm going to do is that I will add 12, for example. Let's say 2, yes, because I'm incrementing by 2, excuse me. So I'll dereference the pointer and I will add 2 to the value inside this address. Now what do you think? When I'll execute my code, will I get here? Well, here I'll get 24 definitely. But right here, will I get 24 or 26? Let's see. Either 24, and I opened black box, excuse me. Either 24 or 26. Let's go ahead and see. So let me clear the interface and go ahead, compile, and then launch. As you can see, we got 26. Why? Well, the reason is this. So basically, in general, when you use a pointer, what it will do is that it will go to the original value inside memory and it will affect it. Now, if you remember this video about pass by value and pass by reference, we know that pass by value actually creates a copy of the original value and works with a copy of this value, while pass by reference actually works with the original value in memory. Here, we're using a pointer. It is same as using pass by reference, but the difference is that we're using a pointer. And so, because pointers actually store the address of a certain variable, so when you dereference the pointer, you're actually getting the original value from the memory, and you're affecting the original value in memory. That is why in the output we got 26, because the original value in memory was affected because you are using a pointer. Now let's do this little exercise about pointers. First of all, we need to create a double variable, then create a pointer to this variable, okay, and then display the address of the variable using the AND operator or dereference operator, and then we'll display the address using pointer, and then we'll dereference the pointer, and then we'll change the value of the pointer. Okay, very easy. Let's go ahead first of all and create a double variable. I'll call it num again. Let's say 12.13 like this. Now I'll create a pointer to this variable, and because it is a double variable, that means the pointer also should be double. So ptr num, and I'll say address of num. Okay, now because it said display the address of this variable using the address, or excuse me, the reference operator, what I'll do is say address using like this, and I'll say and like this, and I'll say like this, int, or excuse me, reference num. And of course, remember that this one right here, this AND operator or reference operator will find the address of this variable. So when you use it, you'll basically get the address of the variable, okay? And now let me copy this again, and I'll say address using pointer. So how do you find the address using pointer? Well, you basically just type the pointer, because the pointer actually stored the address, okay, like this. And now let's go ahead and copy this again. What I will do is I'll write something else. I'll say dereferencing like this, referencing pointer, okay? And how do we dereference a pointer? We simply go ahead, first of all, delete this. We'll simply mention the asterisk sign and say ptr num like this. Okay, now let's do the last task, which is change the value of the pointer using a pointer, excuse me. So what I could do is simply say ptr num equal to, for example, 34.45, for example. What I did here is I just changed the value of the pointer by using pointer dereferencing. And remember, if I go ahead and say something like this, this doesn't work, because ptr num by itself, it's a pointer that stores an address. And when you say like this, you are basically trying to add a double number or value to a variable that stores an address of a double. Okay, so this doesn't work. You should dereference the pointer in order to affect the value inside this address. Okay, and so let me print a before and after by just copying this one, like this, dereferencing pointer. Okay, let's go ahead and run this exercise. Let me first of all clear the interface, and now let's go ahead and run. As you can see, address using the AND operator, well, those two are similar, and then dereferencing the pointer, and then after we change the value of the pointer, we got this value. Okay, and so this is it about pointers. And before we end this up, of course, you could create a pointer to strings and chars. Like if you say string, for example, name like this equal to John, of course you can use pointers to that points to a string. For example, string pointer ptr name equal to address of name, like this. And so we could go ahead and say cout ptr name like this to dereference the pointer and get the value at this index, or excuse me, at this address. And of course you can create a char pointer that will point to a char. Okay, so make sure you go ahead and play around with pointers. They are a very important concept in C++, and in the next video we will discuss pointers with arrays as well as pointer arithmetic. Okay, now thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date for the next C++ tutorial. Now I invite you to click on one of these end screens that will appear right now, and I hope to see you in the next video.